Now, I think it was good proof to show that BCG without maintenance is substandard, and that's the challenge, unfortunately, sometimes is getting a patient through all of BCG with appropriate maintenance, which we know is effective, whether it's because of shortages or because of patient factors, not wanting to continue with the more intensive therapies, having bladder-specific issues. And we saw that all across the arms, that just getting a patient completely through all of this is not easy for our patients.
Yeah, I can completely see that intravesical therapy comes with a lot of side effects. But if the question is, do I look at that data and think, is this going to change my standard of care? I don't know. I guess from a urologist standpoint, I'd be curious to know if you look at the data and think that all of a sudden, I'm going to send this patient to a medical oncologist.
So I will tell you, when I was asked before the data was presented, what is the delta you need to see? Because that's basically how I phrased the question to, when they're saying, well, is this going to change the game? Is it not? And I said, it all depends on what the delta is. If the benefit is significant enough, then I think a lot of us are going to bite the bullet and say this is worth it.
Sure.
But it has to be significant enough. And for me, the mental number I had in my head was about 15%. I said, if it's at 15%, I'm going to think about it.
Yeah.
Maybe not for every patient, but certainly for some. Yeah. And it didn't meet my personal benchmark, which I tried to set for myself before I saw the data. Yeah. But I don't think it's a game changer as a urologist. I'll wait to see the long-term data to see if it's more convincing, if there really is an effect further down the line, maybe 5-year data, cystectomy-free survival in that population.
Yeah.
I want to see it, but I'm not convinced yet.
I absolutely agree. I don't look at that data and think that it's changing my standard of care. I'm happy to chat with patients about it. If it gets FDA approved and we feel good about it, but I don't think that I am offering that to patients based on the study. The interesting thing about that is that I think that there are probably going to be some subsets that look very good. I think you're going to find maybe the T1 plus CIS.
The very high-grade patients.
Very high risk, very high grade. Those patients, we might say, wow, there's a stark difference there. I haven't seen all that data. I think that when Tom showed some of the data, he actually talked about, the patients with TA plus or minus CIS, the hazard ratio there was only around 0.9 or so, whereas if you had T1 plus or minus CIS, or if you had CIS, there was more of a stark benefit. The hazard ratios were improved, but I'd like to see that data a little bit more. The other thing is this the outcome that we most care about?
Yeah.
Recurrence of their high-grade disease versus...
Thank you for saying that. I agree. Yes, of course, recurrences are annoying. Yes, of course, recurrences require trips to the operating room, time off, financial toxicities. All of those things are very real. But when I'm talking to a patient, they care about, are they going to be alive? Yeah. Are they going to still have their bladder? Yeah. And how many times they need to see me, and how can we make it fewer times, right? And so that's number 3 on their list. The recurrences are never number 1. So I agree with you. I'm not sure that that's the primary benchmark. Now it's a nice plot, it's a nice graph, it's a nice way to show the data, to show what your treatment is doing, but it's not the right question.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I don't think that, once again, I remain skeptical about checkpoint inhibitors in the non-muscle invasive space. I am skeptical in the BCG unresponsive. I am definitely skeptical in the treatment naive space.